Cool. So how many of you have coolness envy? You know, you're working on a project, you're working on something for work. You know, you want to use something cool with decorators and swagger and Pydantic. And, the number of tutorials and articles I've seen talking about FastAPI has exploded in the past year or so. And you too may be itching to use FastAPI for more than just a toy project, right? It's got exciting things like async support and performance and type inferred validation and more. I have an aside that I'll come back to later about machine learning projects, but anyway, the thing is, you don't work for a fast-moving machine learning microservice startup. Well, most people don't. Maybe you do, but those business priorities around reliability and database support are stealing your fun. This is so awful. You have to use Django. Boo. But it's okay. You can have your cake and eat it too. Also aside, am I the only one who never really understood that expression? No. So Django-Ninja allows you to have your cake and eat it too. It's got all of the exciting open API magic that you get from FastAPI. It auto-generates, as you see, open API interfaces for everything. It plugs neatly into Django's existing authentication. So you don't have to go re-implement your own auth system when you've already figured out Django LDAP and a whole bunch of other crap. You just pull in Django auth and it will use, well, by default, session-based auth, but it'll do that. It has all of the exciting type hinting niceness that you expect from something like FastAPI. So in FastAPI's world, they're called models because Pydantic calls them models. This obviously conflicts with what Django calls models. So Ninja calls them schemas, and they're basically the same thing. So as you see here, you say that your create method takes an item, type hinted nicely, and it returns a list of items, and it will validate and double check all those things. And you get all of the lovely things that type hinting brings to you. The thing that I think is extra magical here is coming up next, which is, but also the type hinting has ORM integration. So you want to create a schema out of the user model that you have. Great. Use the create schema method. It automatically creates kind of the schema. You can pass things like, fields to exclude or something like that into that function. And then, directly return ORM calls or database objects from your methods. Don't have to worry about writing a serializer or, copying your ORM into a Pydantic model or something like that. It's all just done for you, which is beautiful. It has async support, as all good modern things do. So here you see Django channels as database sync to async helper method, which closes database connections after doing a sync to async call. Pro tip, this is sometimes really handy. And we're seeing sort of a demo method here where you want to respond with a user schema, but first you want to do an async thing. Great. You just await all these things and it's just seamless. It just works. And as a bonus, it's faster than Django REST framework, at least according to the author's benchmarks. It's, as you see, only slightly faster than Flask with Marshmallow, but you can't have them all. But when it's when you're doing async things, as you see with async support, it's obviously much faster because it actually does support async natively. So this has been a very kind of quick whirlwind tour through Ninja's features so far. I want to sort of end or close out with one thing, which is lots of us like greenfield projects, right? I love greenfield projects, but I'm also terrified of the risks associated with rewrites. And one of my favorite things here about Ninja is that it can just be something you adopt for another API endpoint. As you see here, you can just pull it right into your Django URL patterns, and then build from there. If it turns out this is working really well, you can kind of incrementally upgrade your other routes. If it turns out, it's not, then you don't need to, introduce a new service into your architecture or break your existing deployment. And all of the legacy stuff that you hope you never have to touch again, it's okay. You don't have to touch it again. There's one potential downside here, which is sort of a double-edged sword, which is that it moves really fast. I don't know how much of this is visible on your screen. It's kind of cut off for me. But as you see, there's been like 6 releases from 0.10 to 0.12 in the last couple of months. That's a really fast development cycle. On the one hand, it's awesome when a package is maintained and the maintainers are responsive. On the other, for a project that to me has a selling point of a less risky transition to FastAPI-like code, that pace is itself kind of risky, right? Do I want to be stuck several releases behind? What compatibility guarantees are there? There's a lot of the stuff which isn't known. But when there isn't that much risk, I say, why not give it a try? It's exciting, it's modern, and it has a really cool 8-bit logo. That's it for me. Thank you.
We're going to open the floor up to any Q&A for Rami. Feel free to ask any questions.
Have you deployed something like this to production? Like what are like the gotchas? I know, for example, with like model serialization, that's kind of a challenge with like field transformation or exclusion.
So I haven't actually deployed this to production myself. I've deployed it to a branch of production, and really only for one endpoint. I'm currently trying to talk my coworkers into letting me do it for more. Jim, I think, raised his hand.
No, that was the clapping.
Oh, okay, thank you.
How does, I guess one more question, and this might be getting a little too spicy, but how is Django-Ninja being received by a community that might be heavily invested in Django REST framework?
That's a great question. I can't speak for the general community. I can say that in my tiny corner of the community, which is to say my coworkers who are heavily invested in REST framework, it has been met with a pretty resounding meh. From the point of view of, what does this bring on top of REST framework? And the answer is really that, from my point of view, it brings a lot of the type hinting niceness. The OpenAPI interface is, again, it's nice, but REST framework has its own, right? The main thing from my point of view is just the type hinting, auto completion, auto validation niceness. And the async support is also nice. REST framework has no async support, as many people may know. That is a pain that I'm currently feeling at work, which is REST framework has no async support. So.
Are there any more questions for Rami? Or I will stop the recording. Okay, 3, 2, 1.